Well, Fani blew it. That's what the left is saying. She really screwed up. You know, they were looking forward to having a big national television extravaganza. They were going to get the cameras in the courtroom and the whole bit. But she screwed up. She screwed up because, as she would tell us, she's only human, right? We're going to get into all of that. Welcome to the program, everyone. I am Trish Regan. This is the Trish Regan Show. Do me a favor. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you like. Make sure, if you're watching live, join us in the live chat. Really important. Share this. Make a comment below. If you're coming to us after the fact, make sure you weigh in with your opinions on Fani Willis and others. We're going to get to Caitlin Clark because UConn coach. What is he thinking? He's like joining the party. It's like the UConn coach and Whoopi Goldberg all ganging up on this poor Caitlin Clark, who just happens to be the best thing the WNBA ever said. Right? Like, I mean, come on, $28 million deal with Nike. I think some people are jealous. What do you think? Unbelievable stuff. And then, we got some new news on Joe Biden's economy. Still not good. Still not good. Like they're doing the victory lap over at CNN and MSNBC. Oh, look at this. Look at this. 200 and some odd thousand jobs added. And let me tell you need 300 and some odd thousand jobs added to the economy every month just to keep pace with inflation. So you know what? It's nothing to write home about, guys. We're going to talk all about that. Speaking of which, you know what? If you're concerned about the economy, concerned about your investments, make sure you do me this favor. Go over to 76research.com right now. This is my financial research company that I co-founded with my longtime dear friend, Rob Horton. Rob Horton, superstar stock picker, fund manager for over 20 years on Wall Street. And we have 3 different model portfolios for you there, 10 to 15 stocks each, as well as a 76 report. So go there, check it out. If nothing else, make sure you get the free stuff. Rob and I as well are going to be on after this program. I promised you that yesterday, right? But I really mean it today. We're going to be on 76 Research. That's our YouTube channel. So I have another one at 76 Research. Go over there, subscribe to the channel, and I'm going to be live there with Rob. We're going to talk about NVIDIA and a few other things. It's kind of important right now in the markets these days. But I want to begin here on Fani Willis, who just fell flat on her fanny. I might be stealing Alina Hava's line on that. She said it quite well. I think we have the tape. Alina Hava speaking recently. I believe this was on Newsmax, saying just exactly where Fani was winding up.
I'm watching this unfold. This broke like right as we were coming on air. This woman is riddled with problems, and I'm not even a legal mind.
No, she's fallen on her fanny since the very beginning. There's the headline for tomorrow.
Oh, but, we can't help it, right? We just can't help it. But listen, right now the left is really mad at her. And they're like, what happened? Like this woman, you were supposed to deliver. Letitia James delivered. Alvin Bragg delivered. Jack Smith, however he can. You know, he has the law in his way, so he can't quite deliver the way he'd like to. But Fani, what happened? So there's a new article in Newsweek that just came out moments ago, and they are pointing, of course, to what just happened with the appeals court in Georgia. So the headline there for Newsweek is Fani Willis blew it. Legal experts say an appeals court in Georgia has paused the case against Trump, pending a ruling on defendants' efforts to disqualify Willis. You see, this woman, frankly, should never have had the job that she had if these allegations are proven to be true. And let me just say, like, you don't have 30,000 text messages going back and forth with someone. He's not coming over to your condo 30, 40 odd times unless there's something going on, right? They're not talking about the case. Not to mention that a lot of this was happening before she even hired him, which begs a whole new set of questions. In other words, did she hire the beau so that she could maybe get a little something in return? Financial, I mean, right? I mean, that's the question that a forensic accountant and lawyer needs to be asking right now. I guarantee you, the ex-wife is asking a few questions. Nathan Wade's ex-wife. This is partly how it all came out, you see. So Nathan Wade, the prosecutor that had been hired by Fani Willis, who had a very big budget, big budget that she was running for the taxpayers in Fulton County, Georgia. She goes out and hires him, pays him more than $600,000, and it all comes back to haunt her because she has a fling with this guy. of some sort. Some people are wondering if it's still going on. I mean, the judge said, hey, he's got to be out of there if you're going to move forward with this case. So she had to fire him. I guess he resigned. But then he showed up at her party the other night after she won her primary as district attorney down there. So, who knows? Something may still be going on. But that little romance just cost the Democrats the televised trial that they were so looking forward to down in Fulton County, Georgia. I mean, think of it. What a spectacle that would have been. So Fani blew it. Going back to the Newsweek article, let's quote it here because they had a few things to say. The history books, one of the people that they interviewed said, the history books will look back on what the country lost by not having a televised trial before November 2024. And historians will wonder what Fani Willis was thinking. And they'll just scratch their heads. Yeah, we're all wondering what Fani Willis was thinking. He goes on, I don't know how much Judge McAfee could have done between now and the appeals pendency anyway, but the real loss is McAfee's ability to deal with the question of presidential immunity and the supremacy clause over the summer. Gosh darn it, we don't get the darn televised trial. Just imagine what that would have done for TV ratings. Trust me. History's not losing out on anything on that one. Believe me, we can do without Fani Willis, Nathan Wade, and everyone else. I mean, gosh, even the father was in on the act, trying to testify that really it was not a big deal that she kept paying Nathan Wade back for all those trips and dinners in cash, because you see, cash is just something that culturally she was taught to have. So don't even go there, okay? Like that's no-go territory. You can't ask, why is it that you're dealing only in cash? Nowadays, no, not allowed to go there because somehow that's sensitive racial territory. Please. Well, here's Fani Willis promising when she ran for office that she would not do what she did.
Because they deserve a DA that won't have sex with his employees. Because they deserve a DA that won't put money in their own pocket when it should go to benefit children. Because we deserve better.
Yeah. You know what? Everyone deserves better. We all deserve better. That's why history didn't deserve you, Fani Willis, and that little television spectacle that you were hoping to get. I realize the left is very mad, but here's the reality. It has been decided that this appeal is not going to be heard until October. October 4th is Fani's big day, which means realistically, you're not going to have anything actually moving forward in a significant enough way, and you're certainly not going to get any kind of decisions on any of this until, yes, after the election. Of course, you still have the elephant in the room hanging out there, which is, can they even be bringing these things, aside from the fact that Fani probably shouldn't have had the job that she had. And if that's discovered and proven and decided, well, then everything gets blown out. Oh, Drew, I'm going to ask you to pull a magic trick right now. If you can do it, let me know if you can pull the soundbite of that exchange with Merrick Garland that happened this week as it relates to Jack Smith. So as you guys know, Jack Smith is going after Donald Trump with everything he's got. And the Supreme Court has put a few little hurdles in his way. And then there's this judge you see down in Florida, Aileen Cannon. And that judge has said, hang on a second. You know, when it comes to all these Mar-a-Lago classified documents that you guys want to throw him in jail for, that you're not even going to bother prosecuting Joe Biden for. No, we're not even going to go there because he's too old and feeble and can't actually pull it off. Well, Aileen Cannon is actually hard at work, according to the left, trying to get in the way of anything moving forward. Now, that's a bunch of baloney. I actually think the great thing about Aileen Cannon is she's actually trying to do her job. Because you see, if Jack Smith got his gig got his appointment through illegal means, meaning it was never okayed by Congress. His salary was never approved by Congress. It was never actually officially signed off on. Then guess what? You got nothing because you skirted the law. You know, I hate to trip everybody up on little technicalities like that, but you know, the technicalities, they actually do matter. In the court of law, they matter. And so you may get angry, lefties, at Judge Cannon because of that one, but I'll tell you, she's onto something. And this came up in the hearing with Merrick Garland this week. I love it because he can't really answer this question. I want you to see it. Let's take a peek.
Was Jack Smith nominated by President Biden or confirmed by the U.S. Senate?
Look, you're asking me about a case, again, motions filed as
This
just cited
is a simple question.
No, I'm not
Was Jack Smith nominated by President Biden?
No, he was not.
Was he confirmed by the Senate?
No, he was not.
When was the special counsel statute passed?
There is no special counsel statute. There was an independent counsel statute that was expired.
So it expired. So what gives you the authority to appoint a special counsel? You've created an office in the U.S. government that does not exist. Without.
So in other words, if Representative Massey there from Kentucky is right, and they created an office that wouldn't have otherwise existed, and they didn't have any congressional approval to do so or to fund it, then where did Jack Smith come from? This is Judge Aileen Cannon's question. So yeah, you gotta actually get back. I'm gonna pull a Kamala. You gotta get back to the root causes of everything. We gotta get back to the actual initial, like, how did this all come about? How did this unfold? And did they follow proper procedures, or did they just decide to wing it because they had to get them? They had to get them no matter what. I mean, Adam Schiff, you know, he's looking for his encore. Adam Schiff, remember the star of the Schiff show during the whole Russia thing? He was like a dog with a bone. Incidentally, was a client of Judge Merchan's daughter. She's got a social media company that raises money off of these lawsuits. A little bit of a conflict, just saying, just a teeny tiny little bit of a conflict. Anyway, Adam Schiff's out tweeting again. He's tweeting in response. Let me first read you what Donald Trump is saying about Steve Bannon, who's on his way to jail, ladies and gentlemen. Steve Bannon, who refused to comply. He's citing executive privilege, said, I'm not going to comply with Congress's order, this subpoena for me to testify. Now, again, he's citing executive privilege and that he didn't need to do this because these were sensitive to blah, 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 blah. Anyway, he's going to jail. That's happening July 1st. So the countdown is on. He's being pretty stoic about it, saying, you know what? I got the best lawyers. We're going to take this all the way to the Supreme Court. But let me just point out, Lois Lerner, she was subpoenaed, was supposed to show up to testify before Congress. Remember her, head of the IRS? Didn't do it. And the DOJ, Obama's DOJ, forgave her. Same thing with Eric Holder. So Lois Lerner was because of alleged targeting of Tea Party activists by the IRS. And then there was the Fast and Furious thing with Eric Holder. And Eric Holder also refused to testify and got off the hook by his own DOJ. My gosh. Anyway, Donald Trump writing, it is a total and complete American tragedy that the crooked Joe Biden Department of Injustice is so desperate to jail Steve Bannon and every other Republican, for that matter, for not submitting to the unselect committee of political thugs made up of all Democrats and two crazed former Republican lunatics, crying Adam Kinzinger and Liz out of her mind Cheney. I mean, you know, he's being Trump, right? And so this is very colorful language. He goes on and on and on. He's saying they did absolutely nothing wrong. And basically, you ought to indict the unselect, get it? Instead of select, J6 committee for illegally deleting and destroying all of their findings. That's been a big concern, right? Because not everything has come forward. And he's not wrong on that. A lot of the evidence was actually destroyed. And so some of it has come out piecemeal since then. Well, the star of the Schiff show making a comeback on Twitter, responding to this. Now, I find this very interesting because to me, this is like pot calling kettle here. Adam Schiff writes, seeking to prosecute those who uphold the rule of law is just what a dictator would do on day one and every day thereafter. Hang on. Seeking to prosecute those who uphold the rule of law is just what a dictator would do on day one and every day thereafter. Excuse me. What do you think is going down right now, ladies and gentlemen? What do you think the Biden DOJ is doing at this moment in time? Other than going after anybody who had anything to do with Donald Trump, other than going after Donald Trump with 91 counts, including 4 criminal. I mean, Adam Schiff, you said it yourself. What would a dictator do? A dictator would do exactly what we're seeing happen in real time. I mean, it's weird. They're talking about gaslighting you. They're trying to say, no, nothing to see here. We're doing this because we can do this. Concerning. Just a little. And of course, they want to throw everyone in jail, including the former president. Here's Mr. Schiff talking about just exactly that on TV.
Do you think it would be dangerous for the country if Donald Trump were sentenced to jail?
No, I don't think it'll be dangerous for the country. And we have seen Trump urge mass protests outside the courthouse that never materialized. But nevertheless, this is, I think, what Donald Trump is aiming for. This is essentially his threat that if he gets jail time, that he's going to encourage his supporters to rise up. And we saw the very, deadly results of that on January 6th.
So they go back to that over and over and over again, and you can anticipate that that's going to continue to happen, right? Because don't vote for Trump or the whole world is going to fall apart. You heard them. But just in case you didn't, they'll say it again and again and again and again and again. And everyday voters, who the polls show still, and increasingly so, are in favor of Donald Trump, they're not buying it. They're not buying it. In fact, they're not buying it so much that he's even losing Biden now a lot of his key demographic that he used to be able to count on. And that's the African-American population, specifically the young African-American population. So Curtis Jackson, otherwise known as 50 Cent. I'm learning all my pop culture here. 50 Cent weighing in on the political situation here. He went to Washington, D.C., took a picture with Lauren Brobart. That was a little bit weird. Got a lot of attention. He's like, what the heck? I was there with everyone. All you guys care about is Lauren. Anyway, 50 Cent had this wake-up call for the Biden administration because he knows exactly who young Black Americans are going to be voting for, specifically young Black men.
Heading into another election, so have you made a decision about who you're going to support?
I'm not sure how to answer that question, to be honest with you.
Have you made a decision?
I haven't.
What do you see as the significance of African American men in this election for both of you?
I see them identifying with Trump.
Why do you say that?
Because they got RICO charges.
So you get it. So I think everybody's looking at this very suspiciously. As much as Adam Schiff, you may call him something else, and others are trying to point the finger, everybody's saying, but wait a second, isn't this exactly what Joe Biden is doing? And everyone sees through it. And so it's gonna come back to haunt Joe Biden. I mean, they don't have a candidate. Think about that. If you don't have a candidate, what do you run on? You run on democracy. You run on America. America's getting destroyed. Because you can't actually run on the candidate and the policies themselves. Because your policies haven't worked. I mean, heck, we got inflation. We got a border messed up. You know who's going to be joining us momentarily is Dan Tilson from Americans for Prosperity to talk all about the border. Because it's bad, all right? It's really bad. I'm telling you, it's going to get worse because you now have a new president in Mexico who believes in porous borders. Porous borders. So good luck trying to control that then. Joe Biden coming out with some little patch that's not working to try and slow down the influx of people coming into the country illegally. But after all, this is the guy I've played you the clip before from 2020 during the Democrat debate said, you know what? I would encourage people to stampede the border. Well, that's exactly what they're doing. It's messed up. It's messed up. You know what else is messed up is how they keep making it all about race. I mean, look, it's not working, guys. You just heard from 50 Cent. Young black men are not going to be voting for Biden when they feel more simpatico with Donald Trump. And yet you keep going back to race. I mean, even this basketball story that's making the rounds. Caitlin Carter, greatest thing to happen to the WNBA like ever, right? Like, I'll tell you, this is the first time you've ever heard WNBA out of my mouth, like when I've been covering this story. I've never once mentioned the WNBA on this show or any other show for that matter in my entire career. Period. In fact, I've never even watched a clip from the WNBA. And now all of a sudden, Caitlin Carter. I mean, we had it on actually a few months ago before the whole controversy erupted because she was playing. And it was like, wow, this woman with her 3-pointers. It's pretty impressive, right? Like, that's really, really impressive. She is the highest scorer ever. They've never had anybody. She's beaten all the records for the women and for the men. But, she's got a few things apparently against her in this world, in this crazy world in which we live. Because, you're not supposed to play basketball that well? I see if you're the white straight girl. Is that the deal? I'm sorry, but this is just as bad. Look, she just got a $28 million deal with Nike. Why? Because she's good. Last I checked, most famous basketball player of all time. I've said this, Michael Jordan. He's black. Okay, so this is not because she's white, she's getting into, she's actually just good. And when people are good, in the meritocracy that is America, we reward that and we get excited about that. That is, of course, unless you're Whoopi Goldberg, who blames it all on something else, or Sonny Houston. I'm going to play both these clips. This is this Sonny lady who's just a train wreck. I mean, she's kind of, how do I say this and not sound really, really mean, but she's just kind of a chorus player that kind of goes from job to job. She's been at like every network as a legal analyst and somehow landed at ABC, Disney's The View, where every chance she gets, she helps do Whoopi's bidding and brings everything back to race, including basketball. Watch.
That being said, I do think that there is a thing called pretty privilege. There is a thing called white privilege. There is a thing called tall privilege. And we have to acknowledge that. And so part of it is about race, because if you think about the Brittany Griners of the world, why did she have to go to play in Russia?
They wouldn't pay her.
Because they wouldn't pay her.
They wouldn't pay, not because she was black, but because they didn't believe in the WNBA.
This is part of my point. So now, Caitlin Clark is bringing this money, these sponsorships, we hope, into the league, and other players will benefit from it. But I do think that she is more relatable to more people because she's white, because she's attractive. And unfortunately, there still is that stigma against the LGBTQ plus community.
So because she's straight and because she's white, she's getting a $28 million. It has nothing to do with the fact that the girl is exceptional. Look, I mean, Serena Williams, Venus Williams, they're pretty exceptional, right? They got pretty big deals. Tiger Woods, pretty exceptional. Big deals, because that's actually what happens with athletes that are great. And given that we are the meritocracy that is the United States of America and we are a capitalist country, you know what? When you're good, it's usually, hopefully, rewarded. But no. Not according to those on the left. It's all about something else. I mean, this is why they're going to keep exploiting this narrative in a very divisive, negative way. Caitlin Clark. No good. She just can't handle it. She got flagrantly fouled. They finally upgraded it to that. I don't know what the refs were thinking initially. I would have just suspended Chennedy Carter. Period. Done. Over for this. Let's watch the clip. You tell me. I know you've probably seen it, but if you haven't, look really, really close. I mean, the ball's not even in play, right? And all of a sudden, this Kennedy comes in out of nowhere and just sideswaps her, knocks her all the way to the ground. Drew, can we show this? Here we go. Okay, so take a look right there. Boom! boom, down she goes. Let's watch it again because it's worth seeing. Look at that. I mean, she's out of nowhere, literally out of nowhere. There is nothing okay about that. You know what? I come from a basketball family. I didn't play, but a lot of people I knew did. There's nothing okay with that. We also played a lot of ice hockey, not me. I was a figure skater up in New Hampshire. And ice hockey, that can be pretty rough and tumble, right? You don't even do that in ice hockey. Like, that is not okay. That is the kind of thing that this girl should have been suspended for. And instead, the idea is, no, you just got to toughen up. Now you got the University of Connecticut coach jumping on board with this. This idea that, she's just maybe not strong enough. First off, over to Whoopi Goldberg, who started this narrative and must be like somehow coaching Kennedy or something on the side. Let's watch Whoopi.
Let's be realistic, okay? This is basketball, okay? This happens in basketball all the time. Angel Reese got a clothesline the other day. I mean, this is, these are not like, here's the ball. This is get out the way or I'm gonna move you. That's what the game is. So a lot of people, however, are reading this as confrontation. But this is not, they're not playing on the court. They're there to win. Oh. And just because they're women, get over yourselves. Yeah. They're athletes. They're athletes.
Now, she doesn't know this woman does not know a damn thing about the game, right? Whoopi, when was the last time you played any kind of sport? Seriously. All right, so I would stay quiet on this one. You don't know anything about basketball. You don't know anything about women's basketball, men's basketball, or any sport for that matter. So it's kind of highly inappropriate for you to be weighing in such a stupid fashion. So again, I will repeat, that is not normal in basketball. All right? Like sometimes, you know what? The fouls happen and people get more aggressive on fouls than they should be. They take these opportunities, but it's usually within the game itself, right? There's actually something going on. In this case, that wasn't the situation. And yet even the UConn coach, University of Connecticut, like killer basketball, women's basketball team, they are really, really, really good. Well, this guy, the coach, went on to Dan Patrick's show and actually said some really kind of, in my opinion, really disrespectful, wrong things. And he's on the bandwagon somehow, some way, in this really kind of shifty way where he's trying to have his cake and eat it too. But let's just sum it up to say that he's basically alleging that Caitlin Clark isn't that good, that she's not that strong, and that, they're playing her ahead of her skis. No. Again, the record speaks for itself, buddy. You ought to know that. You would have given anything to have had her on your team at UConn. Let's watch him.
This kid's on the wrong team. She's got the wrong skill set to handle the physicality of that league. And she's a rookie. And if you're a WNBA player, if you're any kind of player, you're going to say, I'm going to make a statement. Targeted by society, targeted by her looks, targeted by her reputation, targeted by the disrespect that they've shown to the WNBA. There's a huge target on this kid's back. I thought Cameron Brink said something really smart. She said, no, they're expecting this rookie class to be perfect. This rookie class isn't even one of the best rookie classes in the last 10 years. But they've been put out to be that because the way social media is today. So what kind of impact is this rookie class having in the WNBA?
How do you think Clark is handling this?
I think she's handling great. I think she talks a lot of and she gets a lot of back. So she deserves everything she gets because she gives it as good as she gets it.
She deserves it? She deserves to get sideswiped and thrown to the ground by another player? She deserves that? Are you kidding me? Not to mention the little comment. It's somehow she's just not strong enough. She doesn't have the physicality. I mean, I'm sorry, I looked at the scores. She's actually scored more than anyone in the history of the WNBA, including the men, okay? That's a big, big deal. She's got the 3-pointers down, and he wants to say she's on the wrong team with the wrong skill set and doesn't have the physicality for the league. Please Please. And then he blames the fans. This is great. He somehow, it's the fans' fault for everybody disliking Caitlyn. And when I say everybody, I just mean the players that are so super jealous, because how dare she get a $28 million deal from Nike? They all want that, and they're never going to get it because they're not as good. Anyway, here he is.
If you're a college player and you're a great college player, like Caitlyn was, the delusional fan base that follows her disrespected the WNBA players by saying she's going to go in that league and tear it apart. There were actually odds on she's third or fourth in betting odds on being MVP of the WNBA. These people are so disrespectful and so unknowledgeable and so stupid that it gives women's basketball a bad name. Okay, so the kid was set up for failure right from the beginning.
I have a feeling that Caitlin Clark is not going to fail. What do you think? I have a feeling she's going to triumph here. And she's going to actually help the sport overall. Because you see, even though those other girls are maybe not good enough to get the big deal, the big endorsement deal, you know what? The overall league is going to have way more opportunity because, what do you know? We're talking about it. I'm watching it. Like, a lot more people are watching it. That's why they got the private plane. They're so mad about that. Angela Reese tweeting out, oh, we won, and it's not because we got a private chartered plane. Because of one player. You see, the jealousy's real. The jealousy is real. What do you guys think? I'm looking at that. Oh, Alex, I get it. You don't like Gino. You don't like, I mean, look, UConn, great team, right? But it's almost like he's jealous too. They said that she's got a little bit of a problem with the refs. You know, that they're actually not calling out what they should. I mean, obviously, right? They called this a foul, not a flagrant foul. Lucinda writes, I've never been a basketball fan, but what just happened is very wrong. You are so right. Like, no one deserves that. You go in as a good sportsmanship, sort of with that good sportsmanship mentality. You don't deserve to get beaten up there on the court and then have everyone, from the View to the UConn coach to your players in the league, just up one downside and down the other. It is bad. And look, you know what? David Lorenzo saying women give women's basketball a bad name because it's unwatchable. Look, I hear you, you know, and I've heard that in the family before too. Right? Like, it's really not that watchable. It's not that fast a game, et cetera, et cetera. But I'll tell you, this girl, when she's shooting the 3-pointers, I'm in. You know what? I like watching that. I think that's kind of interesting. And I think that's where she's bringing a whole new aspect to the game that will make it edgier and more competitive. And hopefully, David, more watchable, right? More watchable and therefore better for everyone. You guys are making the comparison to Larry Bird. Yeah, I keep seeing that. They are very jealous, a very jealous, nasty little bunch. But I predict, what do you think? She's going to succeed. Going to succeed. A goat, as Michael writes. Okay, let's move on to Mr. Fetterman. Mr. Fetterman right now, Senator Fetterman, I should say, who was a progressive, but doesn't feel progressive anymore. Is it because there's an election coming up? I don't know. Actually, he's making the point that the progressives have gotten so crazy and so left and so woke that they've left him. This is a very interesting thing because, you know what? Pennsylvania is going to be a really important state. I think it's very much in play. I think that Trump could take it. I think he could take Wisconsin, Michigan, Minnesota. I think there's a lot of places up for grabs that people normally may not have thought. Look, he took it from Clinton back in 2016. I think he's going to get it again in 2024. But what Fetterman is saying is important because, you know, we just saw the other day the senator from West Virginia, Joe Manchin, he left the party. He's like, I can't be a Democrat anymore. That's how disgusted he is. And he did so on the exact same day that they sentenced 34 counts, not a sentencing yet, but 34 counts. Trump, guilty, right? And Manchin's like, I'm out. Like, who are you people? Who are you people? What are you doing? Well, now Fetterman is saying some interesting stuff in his hoodie and all. Let's watch him on CNN.
8 years ago, I was a progressive, but the situation's changed, and I've been very clear that I didn't leave that label. That label left me, and I think it's much more important to be focusing on Donald Trump instead of,
Oh, that's an interesting way of putting it. And it's left me, Fetterman. The label left didn't. Well, we won't get into your grammar right now, but this is a senator there who is trying to set the stage for saying, hey, it's okay. It's okay to all of his voters. You know what? You don't have to vote for Donald Trump just because you're frustrated with the insanity of the Democrat Party right now. Just because, you think that boys are boys and girls are girls. You don't have to vote for Donald Trump. That's what he's effectively trying to say. And so Fetterman saying that the progressive label has left him. It has left him. But we still have to hate Trump. Interesting. Hillary Clinton actually predicted that they would have a problem with where they were going in terms of the trans stuff, in terms of kids. Right, having their genders changed at such a young age, because those are things you can't recover from, ladies and gentlemen. Hillary Clinton actually said they needed to get off this. Oh, the left went crazy on her. You know what? The woke bullies came out in force and said, don't you dare, don't you dare. But she was sort of saying, I'm going to be practical. It's not a winning issue. Here, I'm not Hillary Clinton, and I'm not Fetterman, and I'm obviously more right than I am left. And I'm just going to tell you, any way you slice it, it's not a politically winning issue. In fact, it'll cause a lot of people to vote for Donald Trump. So Fetterman knows that, and he's trying to sort of set the stage for saying, it's okay to be against their woke policies. But is it? Because Joe Biden is the one that's saying every 12-year-old in America doesn't actually have to have a parent signing off on any of their medical stuff. They can go do whatever they want by executive order because somehow this protects trans kids. Wow. You can't smoke, you can't buy cigarettes, you can't drink, can't vote, but you can change your gender, courtesy of the President of the United States, without even getting any kind of parental sign-off. Sorry, you lost me. You just lost me. You know where else you lost me, Joe? You lost me on the darn immigration situation, because I'm looking at these numbers, 350,000 people just being given asylum because you can't handle the stampede that you asked for, that you begged for back in 2020. I do recall. Well, what do we do about it? I think you got to elect different leaders, but even when you elect different leaders, you need a system in place. I sat down moments ago with Dan Tilson to talk about this very issue, the problem with immigration today and how we fix it. Watch. Dan Tilson, Federal Affairs Liaison for Americans for Prosperity. It is so good to have you here. You are the guy we need to talk to right now.
So happy to be here.
Well, listen, I'm looking at these numbers. It's crazy. It's not sustainable. Reuters out with a report. 350,000 people just granted asylum because they can't handle the caseload. What has happened? What is going on?
This administration is really just setting everyone up for failure. Since January, I've even noticed a huge influx of immigrants right down the road here on Capitol Hill. And anyone can go check on them. No one is doing well. And it just feels like this administration is setting everyone up for poverty and not prosperity.
I look at it and let me just get this out there. I'm actually a believer in immigration. I think that immigration is a good thing. You just need to actually know who the heck is here and have some kind of system around it. I think back to Donald Trump when he said, listen, we want a big red carpet. We want to select, however, the people that are coming. And I'm not saying everybody has to have a PhD. Don't get me wrong. You need workers. You need to be strategic, right? And you might say, okay, wait, we're deficient in nurses. Can we go to a country I'm making this up, but let's head to the Philippines and recruit nurses from the Philippines because this will help American hospitals. I mean, there's got to be some kind of structure around this. And instead, it's just a stampede at the border that our system can't handle and that our communities themselves, Dan, can't handle.
Yeah, I think you just described a little bit of what people will call a strategy. And that's something that this administration just doesn't have. They are really trying to sweep things under the rug in the interest of expediting people through. But think about it this way. If you are wanting to come to America, a lot of people do, and you're trying to weigh your options. Do I wait 5 to 10 years for a legal pathway? Or do I just cross the Rio Grande River right now and then not have to face the consequences? Well, there's your answer. You're just going to go ahead and cross
Well, people are logical, right? I mean, and they're doing what's best for them. And look, you know, one of the reasons they want to come here, hopefully, is because you can make a life for yourself here. And the values that have made this country so terrific, the meritocracy that it is, the capitalist country, hegemonic power as a result that it is, that's theoretically, hopefully, why people are coming here. And yet that gets destroyed in the process if you have a system that's not ready for it. And that's where we're really, really lacking. I agree with you. This administration doesn't have a strategy in place. I don't think they have the right people. I mean, I look around the mulberry bush here and we get an ex-MSNBC anchor, former governor of Michigan, as head of our energy department. I mean, that's wild to me. We get a social worker and former music major. Nothing against them. I studied music myself, but you know, Manhattan School of Music and Columbia Social Work shouldn't qualify you to be a top economic advisor. And so as I look at all this, I'm like, no one knows what they're doing, Dan. And if you don't have qualified people, I think this is the result.
Yeah, we're trying to bring the ideas here at Americans for Prosperity. You know, when I walk down the street here in DC, for the folks that arrived from Venezuela over the past couple months, to their credit, they're at least yelling, I want a job, but you haven't come here the right way. And so unfortunately, you're never going to be able to level up. So what we're trying to do is flip the pyramid so that we are incentivizing people to come here the right way. And here's the reality that I think even Democrats are starting to understand. It starts with border security. If you don't have border security, if you don't have operational control down south, then folks are not going to feel the incentive to come here the right way.
It makes all the sense in the world. And by the way, when you don't have those right incentives, I mean, to use sort of the law of unintended consequences that, you know, we talk about a lot in economics, that's actually creating a whole subset of poor outcomes for a lot of the people, right, that are trying to come here, and they get put in harm's way in very dangerous positions because they're incentivized in poor ways. We need a better system. You guys have an idea for a better system. Tell me about it, because it's sort of a 4-pillar approach. I love, by the way, I tell everybody, go over to americansforprosperity.com. Make sure you sign up because they've got tons of ideas. You can make sure that you sign up at securebordersecureamerica.com. I like that, securebordersecureamerica.com, and learn more about what we need to do. Push your lawmakers, push your local leaders to be doing the right things to incentivize people in the right ways. But you've got an idea. I love it because, again, everybody comes on, they complain. We all like Monday morning quarterback, but at AFP, you guys are strategically thinking about ideas. So tell me your idea to fix it, Dan.
Thanks, Trish. Yeah, so for one, border reform is very popular across the board with Americans right now. The polls show that folks disagree about whether that's physical infrastructure or constructing a wall. But there are a couple things that Democrats could do right now that shocks me if they don't want to get the political points. They could hire more Border Patrol agents. I mean, the working conditions down there are really awful. Do
they have the money for that? Is that like something that, you know, Biden's gonna say, oh, they're not giving me the money. They're not, you know, I don't have the budget approval. Of course, he didn't need any budget approval to go out and get Jack Smith, but that's neither here nor there. I mean, can they do that?
I'm not interested in excuses anymore. The system is really breaking and we have to do something to fix it. And so that's why pillar one is secure borders and ports. But when we're talking with folks across the aisle, we help them understand that all of the wonderful things about immigration that we love, that we cherish in this country, it ties back to border security. And so next we talk about increasing American competitiveness, finding out where are the gaps in our labor market, whether that's with STEM visas or doctors in rural areas, or even just additional help on the farm. These are important aspects of a working, functioning economy. But it's really difficult for businesses to find those individuals because our rules are so complicated. When I talk with people that have recently immigrated, they'll say, well, I'm Venezuelan and I thought I qualified for this, but it turns out that program's only for Haitians or Mexicans. This doesn't make sense. And so we need clear and predictable rules. And then finally, we need transparency so that we can really judge what is working about our system, and then we can hold our legislators accountable.
I play a soundbite a lot on the show because I think it's important to remember how this has become so highly politicized in the wrong ways, right? And you go back to 2020, and the soundbite I play is President Biden, candidate Biden, in the 2020 Democrat debate, saying that he would advise people to stampede the border, and that we are, a country that should be welcoming everyone. And it was a strange thing to say, in my estimation, given the national security considerations, et cetera. But he said it, and up until recently, we heard a very different tone. And even now, Dan, we're hearing from his former press person turned MSNBC host, Jen Psaki, that he had to do this. He had to put this border order in place in which if it gets too overwhelmed, they're going to shut down the border. This is something he had to do for political reasons, which makes me think, he doesn't really believe it. And then I say to myself, well, what does he really want here? What is the end game? Because it hurts America. It hurts Americans to have a borderless society here. I mean, you just can't do it.
Well, maybe it's an admission that he has to at least partially solve a problem that he created. When you have this rhetoric that it's okay to stampede the borders, it's dangerous for those who want to migrate, especially those that want to migrate legally. It's dangerous for our Border Patrol agents. Can you imagine putting on your bulletproof vest and going to work that morning after hearing people might try and storm you? This is really not the way to come into a country and start a new life. So I think the administration needs to be more responsible. If we want folks to come here the right way, to unleash their talents for our economy, we've got to help them do it the right way. But we've got to make sure that the rules are clear, predictable, and then we hold the immigrants to those standards.
Yeah. The Federal Reserve was out recently saying that they credited the recent growth, which is not much, 1 and change percentage growth. We got a little teeny bit of growth. And they credited actually immigration with that growth, to which I thought, I don't know, look, immigration, yes. If you have people working in the right sort of economic spots, et cetera, can help us. And it's one of the reasons why we need it. However, if you're relying on the stipends given by government to people who are living in hotels for 6 months and getting cell phones, et cetera, I don't think that's the answer. I mean, that's not our future either. I don't know how much the government can afford it. It feels almost fictional, like a money transfer, right? Like the government's giving money to migrants to sustain them for a little bit, and maybe they're buying some stuff, and you're looking and saying, oh, well, now we got a few points, or not even that, on GDP.
Yeah, I think, the Democrats have been trying to harp on these very, very marginal successes. And so I like to remind them that a century ago, we had more than twice the number of migrants arrive in New York City than we had today. But they went through Ellis Island, they went through a process, they got certified, and then we decided to do something great with it. We built the subway. Now we're just simply giving handouts and allowing people to stay in a hotel room for 30 days. And in exchange, the citizens of New York have fewer access to library hours, they have fewer accesses to other government programs. And so people are asking to sacrifice when instead we could be finding a win-win. but we have to go back to border security. Like, we've really incentivized people to come here the wrong way, and nothing will get fixed until we have control there.
Until we fix that. So big border patrol, secure the borders, be strategic, think about who you need, and create a system. It shouldn't be that hard. I mean, look at the technological advances we have, Dan. It should not be that hard. We ought to be able, I mean, use AI if you have to. I don't know, but you ought to be able to figure it out. If we figured it out back in the Ellis Island days, how can we not figure it out now?
Yeah, it's just a lack of will. I think there's a sense that this administration just wants to rush as many people into the country as they possibly can. But I got to be honest with you, when I go down the street and see these folks that are just hanging out on the sidewalk begging for jobs, I'm not even sure at this point that they would be Biden voters.
Dan, thank you so much. I encourage everybody to go to Secure Border, secureamerica.com. Critical stuff. Dan Tilson, Americans for Prosperity, thank you.
Thank you so much. You can get a copy of our 4 Pillars booklet on Secure Border, secureamerica.com.
My thanks to Dan Tilson, Secure America, Secure Border, secureamerica.com. Go get yours. Listen, I mean, great points there. Shouldn't be that hard, right? I mean, you think of the advantages that we have today that we didn't have back in the days of Ellis Island. We ought to be able to get this done. And yet, you know what? There's absolutely no will. And we can debate why that is. Is it the census record? I don't know. But I think ultimately it's a very bad thing for America to just open up the floodgate like that. We can't handle it. Right? We just can't, Joe. And people are recognizing this more and more and more. Has anyone noticed that Jill Biden, Dr. Jill, is like a little magician? I don't know if she's like Bewitched. Remember Samantha and Bewitched, where she could just do that little thing with her nose and then suddenly be in another place in another time? I always wished I could clean my house like that, right? I liked that show as a kid. I actually watched the reruns. But anyway, Jill Biden is flying all over the world these days. Here's an article from Daily Mail. She just arrived at the court in Delaware this morning. 3,500-mile dash from France. And guess what? She's going back. She'll be back by tomorrow because she's got to be there to wrangle her husband at his state dinner. I mean, it's a lot of traveling. It kind of makes you wonder. I mean, Jill's able to do it. How come not Joe? Poor Joe, right? They got to get her back there really soon. But first of all, just to point out that her son, her stepson, is in court for some really bad stuff, really, really, really bad stuff. And thank goodness he's there, by the way. Thank goodness he's there. It's thanks to one judge who was like, wait a second, I can't sign this. What does this mean? Okay, he's going to get off on the gun charge, but what about tax evasion? What about his foreign lobbying, et cetera, et cetera? So anyway, the prosecution today just rested its case. Jill was there to show her support, but she has to hightail it back to France. Seriously, because, who else is going to do this? Remember, I showed you the video yesterday? They're speaking in French, and I get it. It's French. Here he is, taking a little cat nap along the way, and you can see her leaning in, and she's about to nudge him. And they go straight to the flag. Convenient. Nice touch, right? But he's over in Normandy, right? And lots of video that's been coming out of that. Some true, not so true. Anyway, point being, he's 81 years old, and he's struggling. And it's a lot for anyone. Look, I mean, I've been doing it. I was over in Ireland recently and flew over, had every intention actually of doing a live show from Belfast. We ran into some technical complications, so I wasn't able to do it. But I was live from Southern Ireland, actually, the very next day. We managed to do it, and then, I fly back, and I'm here with you guys again. But I had the weekend to do that. So I kind of feel for Jill. It's not exactly easy, but she is the first lady, and her husband, the president, ought to be able to handle it a little bit better. But he's struggling, as the Wall Street Journal reported this week, 45 different people that they interviewed, Republicans and Democrats, and everybody agrees. This is not the Joe they used to know. I mean, if he was ever smart, I don't think he's ever been smart. I think he's always been political, but he can't even sort of muster up the political courage anymore. He doesn't really stand for anything, right? Think about how he keeps changing his opinion on everything. He doesn't stand for anything. You know, first he's all about, stampede the border. Now he's like, nope, we're locking down the border. I mean, look at what he's done on Israel. He was all for Israel until some people on the leftist of the left started throwing a fit. And now he's like, whoa, so he's backing off of that. I mean, I don't think he knows what day it is. As for the economy, he actually wants you to think that Donald Trump created the 9% inflation. No, Joe, that was you. You see, when Donald Trump left office, we were at like 1.4% inflation. And then you came in, buddy, and you drove it higher and higher and higher and higher and higher. And now you send your flacks out there. This woman, she was nearly head of the Federal Reserve. Her name is Lyle Brainard, and she went on CNBC this morning. Had a couple little interesting things to say. It's jobs report day. We did see that 200,000 jobs were added to the economy. It's not enough, ladies and gentlemen. You know what? Just to keep pace with the population growth, you got to add more than 300,000 jobs. Unemployment ticked up a little bit, went to 4%. And somehow she just wants you to know, even though they're telling you the economy's great, Joe feels your pain on the inflation front. But, you know, it's not his fault. No. It's all Trump. Excuse me, lady. Anyway, watch it. We'll talk about it.
But the narrative, Director Brainard, is the opposite. That they balloon that the administration has ballooned the debt and deficits in a time where we've seen good growth and has infused trillions more into an economy that was already hot, and Americans are feeling cumulative now effects of inflation, even if inflation rates are coming down. It's not getting through, and you see it in the confidence data, you see it in the polls, you see it polls that people think that we're going into recession.
That's interesting. That's not actually the narrative. The narrative is that the tax cuts ballooned the deficit by $2 trillion and produced very little in terms of any additional investment.
Hang on, Drew. Just stop her for 1 second. Because, this stuff drives me crazy. Not true. Not true. Lady, not true. You should know better. You're like an economist, right? You should know better. Guess what? Tax cuts, they grew our economy. Median incomes grew for the first time the most they had in 50 years. Donald Trump grew median incomes more than any other president in 50 years. And why? Those tax cuts, they kind of helped. You had all this money overseas, offshore, and guess what? He onshored it with tax cuts. Suddenly, the U.S. was in play. We were suddenly more competitive. Those tax cuts enabled businesses and people to keep more of their money, which generated more growth. I mean, we can go back to the Laffer curve if you'd like, which you know about, Brainard. But you know what? The brain is failing Lael Brainard today because it's been substituted with a bunch of political garbage. Let's continue.
So, if you look at contributions to the debt and deficits, those really, the large contributions came under the previous president. This president has presided over a period where deficits have come down. And again, he just signed into law $1 trillion in cuts. He has a budget transparently that reduces those deficits. So what we're really talking about is being transparent about the cost of additional tax cuts. The CBO,
unbelievable. I actually can't believe that she can say this stuff with a straight face. I just can't believe it. The narrative is not that people are suffering. No, the narrative is that the other team did this. Can we show my favorite chart, Drew? Can we take a look at incomes, real incomes, not the incomes that Lael Brainard wants you to hear about that aren't adjusted for inflation, but real wages. Take a look. Biden versus Trump. They went up under Trump. They went down under Biden. And yes, they've been climbing up a little bit, but we're still not even back to the median. All right, this is why people feel bad. Well, I realize that you're not feeling bad, okay? I realize no one in the White House is feeling bad. But this is what everyday Americans are up against. Groceries are higher. Gas prices are higher. And somehow they're trying to blame the other guy. That's not going to fly. It's just not going to fly. Nobody believes it. Nobody believes anything you people say anymore. You have totally spent any equity you had with the American people. It's gone. It's been wiped out. Remember when they told us Trump should not be filling the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, the SPR? The Strategic Petroleum Reserve is the oil that you keep on hand in case you wind up in a situation like war. And so typically you want to fill it when oil's cheap. And you want to never use it unless you absolutely positively have to. Like if you're going into war, you certainly don't use it before an election, right? Because that would be kind of political, would it not? Well, they were furious when Donald Trump filled it up at $20 a barrel. They said, how dare he? He's just given a big giant giveaway to all of his oil friends. And he's like, I'm sorry, it's $20 a barrel, right? You know, I'm not an oil trader, but gee, it's $20 a barrel, and it had been 70, 80. It's kind of a trade worth taking, right? Well, listen to Lael Brainard. Remember, this woman was nearly the head of the Federal Reserve. She might still one day, with the Democrats, actually have a position like that, which is just terrifying. Let's listen to her explanation of what's going on over there at the SPR.
And we recognized that in the wake of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, that it was important to give that relief to consumers. So the Strategic Petroleum Reserve has been an incredibly important tool. We've been refilling it in a way that, as you noted, I think has been smart, and we'll continue to be very focused on that. The president's going to focus on gas. He's very focused on grocery costs. He's been calling for big grocers to bring prices down, and we actually are seeing many of those grocery chains now answering the call with price reductions on thousands of items. So that is going to be a continued focus for the president, as it is for so many families around the country.
Only a communist says stuff like that. You see, Biden's just telling the grocery stores, you have to lower prices. And then they lower prices. No, that's not actually happening. They're still up about 30, 40% from when Joe came into office, Lael. And you can't just actually wave a magic wand and tell the grocery stores to lower prices. It just doesn't work that way, okay? You know, they keep going on about shrinkflation, whatever. Rob actually did a big piece on this at 76 Research. We talked about this recently because it's actually not that way. 76research.com. If you haven't gotten there, make sure you do. Take a look at the inflation-protected portfolio. You might want to look at the American Resilience portfolio. You might want to look at the Income Builder portfolio. But anyway, one of the things that we were talking about is that, you know, the Costco's and the Walmarts of the world, they haven't actually been able to really pass on prices in the ways that they want. I mean, they've increased, obviously, but not in a way that actually really, really helps their margins. And so some of the margins have actually shrunk compared to where they were when Trump was in office. So it's not like they're making a ton more money like the Biden administration wants you to believe. Again, it's just more hocus pocus. It's more politics instead of economics. And so this is wrong. I mean, this is really, really wrong. But you have a bunch of people that in some cases should know better. I think Lael Brainard knows better. She certainly has the educational background to know better. But then you get all these politicos running around saying, well, this is how we spin it, and this is how we spin it. And then you get the likes of this former MSNBC anchor who's now our energy secretary. Doesn't that tell you everything you need to know? Who's absolutely clueless. This is Jennifer Granholm, former governor of Michigan, totally clueless on how energy markets worked. And when my friend Tom Keene, when she first became energy secretary, she went on his show on Bloomberg, another network I used to work at. He asked her, like, what's your plan? And she laughs like a freaking hyena. I kid you not. Watch.
In Sturgis, Michigan, it is $2.89 a gallon. I guess that's better than in California. What is the Granholm plan to increase oil production in America?
Oh my
That is hilarious. Would that I had the magic wand on this. As you know, of course, oil is a global market. It is controlled by a cartel. That cartel is called OPEC, and they made a decision yesterday that they were not going to increase beyond what they were already.
So it's all OPEC's fault. We're not going to take any responsibility. We don't need to drill here. No, we're just going to wait around and see what OPEC does. Come on, Jennifer. I know you're not that bright, but someone ought to have given you a basic level in how energy markets worked before you became the U.S. Energy Secretary. He doesn't have bright people around him. Okay, and we're paying the consequences, guys. We need smarter people. We need business people. We need people that understand energy markets. We need people that understand the economy, inflation, etc. We need the best and the brightest. And instead, we get these hacks. That's what they are. Total hacks, ladies and gentlemen. Speaking of hacks, Joe Biden wants you to know, he did this big interview, you see, because, big anniversary, 80th anniversary of D-Day happened in Normandy. He went over there. He was falling asleep occasionally, but in the times that he was awake, he did a few little interviews. He did speak briefly. He wanted to remind you that, you can't elect Donald Trump because democracy hangs in the balance and we're on the verge of basically the 1930s all over again. That was a message that just kept coming through over and over and over again. It's like, come on, you know what? This is an important day. Let's recognize it for what it is. How are you trying to turn yourself, by the way, into Ronald Reagan? That was one of the things that struck me. I'm like, wait a second. You're Jimmy Carter, right? Let's just get this straight, buddy. You are Jimmy Carter 2.0. You're not Reagan. Anyway, he gave this whole speech, et cetera. And then he sits down with ABC News. Disney-owned ABC News. They also own The View. And he was asked about his son, Hunter. You see, Hunter's trial ended. Well, the prosecution rested its case today, and everybody just assumes Joe's going to do what Joe's going to do. So he was asked the big question. Let's listen.
As we sit here in Normandy, your son Hunter is on trial, and I know that you cannot speak about an ongoing federal prosecution. But let me ask you, will you accept the jury's outcome, their verdict, no matter what it is?
Yes.
And have you ruled out a pardon for your son?
Yes.
You have.
Do you believe that? Really? Yeah, it's a little tricky for him because he's trying to say, you got to believe in American justice, all while sitting there saying, this is so unfair that my son is being subjected to all that he's subjected to. It's like, okay, pick your side, buddy. So I have a feeling that if his son is going to jail, he actually will pardon him, unless he's just that mean of a father. But all along, I kind of think he is. Like, I'm just going to say, like, as a parent, if your son is that messed up, you know it's all going to come out when you run for president. Why would you do that? Why would you do that to your family? Come on. Like, you've already had one loss. You know you're exposing your kid. You know that opposition research is going to be all over him. You know that this is all going to transpire. So why are you that desperate to be president? I'm telling you, he was. Remember when he first got into office and he assembled all those people around, all the liberal academics and historians, and said, how can I be the next FDR? Well, buddy, you were never going to be the next FDR because guess what? You didn't have the votes to do that or be that. So you can sit there and say, I'm going to forgive student loans for everyone. You got the Supreme Court in your way. You got Congress in your way. It's not going to happen. But it doesn't stop him from trying. Anyway, it was the 80th anniversary of D-Day. And that really was a terrific generation, was it not? I want to share this clip with you guys because this is just a special moment. A 97-year-old veteran, a former paratrooper, went back to Normandy to parachute out of a plane and relive the experience that he had when he and 144,000 other members of the Allied forces went in and won that war for the world. Let's take a look at this special moment. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts, thank you for that. Or Spotify, thank you for that. A reminder, I'd love it if you could show the show a little bit of love over on those platforms. But here he is. We're watching him parachute out. I got to tell you, I wouldn't even do that now. I'm not 97. I don't think I would have done that at 16. Wow.
We're okay.
Amazing.
Nobody got hurt.
This is worth seeing.
Bravo, guys. Bravo.
97. You know, we're not going to have all these guys left pretty soon. It's important to hear from them, to hear their memories, to understand what that all was about. I mean, think about that. They were young kids themselves going in. It was a very different time. You didn't have the technology, you didn't have the aircrafts we had now. Parachuting in like that, being a paratrooper was a very, very new thing, new technology. And think of the bravery that they had. Really something. And you compare and contrast that with what we see on college campuses where, you know, they're mad because they're not able to get Grubhub or Uber Eats delivered to their door. The cafeteria is not bringing them their meals when they decide to take over an entire hall at Columbia University. We've lost our way, America. I hope we never have to be in a situation like that 97-year-old found himself back in 1944. I don't ever want to have to do that. You know, there's another reason why you got to be smart. You got to use trade and tariffs and diplomacy before you start putting lives on the line. But we got to be willing, ready, and able if it does happen, which means you need to be investing in the military, not taking money away from the military, Joe Biden. And you know what? We got to believe in America. Because you think anybody's going to go parachuting into any place right now when they don't believe in the country in which they were born. Because you keep feeding them a whole bunch of garbage about how bad the place is. You know, patriotism matters, especially when you're risking your life. We don't have enough members of the military right now. For goodness sakes, they're out recruiting men that want to be women on TikTok for the military. In all seriousness, on TikTok. What's that about? Wokeism has taken over everything. And I'm just going to tell you this. You know what? That backfires. That weakens us. There's going to come a moment in time when we need to stand up as Americans for America. I think that moment's now. I hope you agree. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you like. Make sure you share. Make sure you comment. And I will see you back here on Monday live and over the weekend. Hit the bell so you know when it's happening. Have a good one.